102 picks. That's how many players were chosen before him. 102 dreams fulfilled before his name was even mentioned. In a league where first-round quarterbacks are crowned as saviors before throwing a single pass, Kirk Cousins was just another name on day 3 of the NFL draft. But sometimes the best stories aren't written in the first round. They're written the hard way. What if I told you that this overlooked fourth-round pick would go on to earn over $230 million in career earnings, throw for over 42,000 yards, and become one of the most reliable quarterbacks in the NFL? By the end of this video, you'll not only discover how a backup quarterback defied all odds to become a Pro Bowl player, but I'll also reveal the exact moment that changed his entire career, a moment that most fans have never even heard about. But here's what makes this story different. While other NFL success stories often talk about natural talent or lucky breaks, Kirk's journey is a masterclass in patient persistence. And for those who stay until the end, I'll break down the 3 specific strategies he revealed himself. He used to transform himself from a fourth-round afterthought into one of the NFL's most respected quarterbacks. Isn't it bad that being in a room where everyone tells you you're not good enough, where draft analysts question your arm strength, where teams pass on you not once, not twice, but 101 times? This is absolutely unbearable, and anyone could get hurt, but this is a testament to what happens when preparation meets persistence, when doubt meets determination. The year is 2012, and while the NFL world is buzzing about Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III, this young quarterback from Michigan is about to begin a journey that would redefine what it means to be an underdog in the NFL. Growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, Kirk Cousins didn't have a silver spoon or a famous last name in football like Manning or Taylor or Sanders. Instead, he had something far more valuable: an unshakable work ethic and a family that believed in him. But to be honest, belief alone doesn't get you to the NFL. Can you imagine a skinny high school quarterback in Holland, Michigan, staying late after practice, throwing passes to receivers who weren't even there? That was Kirk Cousins. Not the most talented, not the most athletic, just the most determined. His high school stats? Nothing extraordinary. 3,204 passing yards and 40 touchdowns. Numbers that wouldn't turn many heads in college recruitment offices. But then came the moment that could have ended everything. During his junior year, Kirk broke his ankle. For most high school players, a broken ankle is more than an injury. It's a dream killer. College scouts stop calling. Opportunities fade. But Kirk? He turned his recovery period into a mental boot camp, studying game films while his body healed. This is where most sports documentaries would tell you about a miraculous recovery and instant success. But Kirk's story isn't about miracles. It's about mathematics. The mathematics of small improvements, daily grinds, and relentless preparation. When other players were resting in the offseason, Kirk was calculating. Literally, he kept spreadsheets of his throws, tracking accuracy percentages with the precision of a scientist. Michigan State took a chance on him, but even there, nothing was guaranteed. He arrived on campus as a 2-star recruit. In college football terms, that's like showing up to a Ferrari dealership in a used Honda. But what happened next would shock not just the Big Ten Conference, but eventually the entire NFL. Remember that spreadsheet I mentioned? Well, by the time Kirk left Michigan State, those numbers told a story that would make even the harshest critics raise their eyebrows. But Michigan State wasn't just another chapter in Kirk Cousins' story. It was where the scientist became a surgeon. Those spreadsheets and late-night training sessions were about to pay off in ways nobody saw coming. Well, nobody except Kirk. Let these numbers sink in: 9,131 passing yards, 66 touchdowns, and a Big Ten championship. But here's what the statistics don't tell you. Kirk became just the second 3-time captain in Michigan State's 125-year football history. Think about that. A former 2-star recruit chosen by his teammates to lead not once, not twice, but 3 times. You like that? No. Kirk wasn't shouting his now famous phrase yet, but he was quietly building something special. While future first-round picks were making headlines, Kirk was making history. He led the Spartans to their first Big Ten championship game. His teams went undefeated against Michigan, a perfect 4-0 record against their bitter rivals. The kid with the spreadsheets was now the man with the master plan. But here's the plot twist that makes this story different. Despite all this success, NFL scouts still weren't convinced. They said he was too methodical, too calculated. Imagine being criticized for being too prepared. That's like telling a surgeon they study too much. Their doubts were about to fuel the next chapter of his career. The 2012 NFL Draft was approaching, and while Andrew Luck and RG3 were being fitted for their first-round suits, Kirk was still seen as an afterthought. But remember those spreadsheets from his high school days? He was about to apply that same methodical approach to proving every single doubt wrong. And that brings us to the moment that would change everything, the 2012 NFL Draft. But before we get there, let me tell you what happened behind the scenes during those pre-draft interviews, because this is where Kirk's story takes an unexpected turn. April 28, 2012, Radio City Music Hall in New York City. The NFL Draft was in its third day, and 101 names had already been called. The Washington Redskins, who had already spent their first-round pick on RG3, were on the clock. What happened next would eventually go down as one of the most pivotal fourth-round picks in NFL history. With the 102nd pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins select Kirk Cousins, quarterback, Michigan State. Confusion rippled through the draft room. ESPN analysts questioned the pick. Why would a team that just mortgaged their future for RG3 spend another pick on a quarterback? But here's what most people don't know. In that moment of uncertainty, Kirk pulled out his trusty spreadsheet one last time. This time, he wasn't tracking throws. He was writing down every team, every analyst, and every doubt. This wasn't just motivation. This was fuel for what would become a $230 million career. Landing in Washington should have been a dead end. Backing up a number 2 overall pick? That's usually where fourth-round quarterback stories end. But Kirk did something extraordinary. He treated backup reps like Super Bowl snaps. Every practice, every film session, every clipboard-holding moment was preparation for an opportunity that might never come. And then it happened. The moment that would change everything. December 15, 2013. RG3 was struggling, and head coach Mike Shanahan made a decision that would alter NFL history. Kirk got his shot. In his first start of that season, he threw for 381 yards and 3 touchdowns. The backup, who was never supposed to succeed, had just shown the first glimpse of what was coming. But this wasn't just beginner's luck. Remember those spreadsheets, those late-night training sessions? The years of preparation were about to meet opportunity in a way that would shock the NFL world. You like that. 3 words that would become Kirk Cousins' battle cry. But before that viral moment in 2015, Kirk was quietly building something special in Washington. Something that would transform him from a backup plan into an $84 million guaranteed quarterback. Here's what most football fans don't realize. Between 2012 and 2015, Kirk wasn't just sitting on the bench. He was building a career blueprint that would revolutionize how backup quarterbacks approach their role. Every single week, he would create detailed reports of opposing defenses, not for RG3, but for himself. He was preparing for a future that only he could see. The numbers tell an incredible story. From 2015 to 2017, Kirk threw for over 13,000 yards and 81 touchdowns. But here's the stat that changed everything. His completion percentage kept climbing. 69.8%, 67.0%, 64.3%. In a league where consistency is king, Kirk was becoming quarterback royalty. Remember those doubts about his arm strength? He silenced them with 4,917 passing yards in 2016 alone. But the most fascinating part of Kirk's Washington years isn't in the stats, it's in the mindset. While other quarterbacks were focused on highlight reels, Kirk was focused on completion percentages. While they chased SportsCenter's top 10, he chased efficiency ratings. The spreadsheet kid from Michigan had evolved into the NFL's most methodical quarterback. Then came the franchise tag drama. 2 years, 2 tags, $44 million. Washington couldn't decide if they wanted to commit long-term. But here's what they didn't understand. Kirk wasn't just playing for a contract, he was playing to prove a point. Every completion, every touchdown was a message to those 101 picks that came before him. And just when everyone thought they had Kirk Cousins figured out, he did something that would send shockwaves through the NFL. The Minnesota Vikings were about to make him an offer that would change NFL contract history forever. March 15, 2018. The NFL world stood still. Kirk Cousins had just signed a fully guaranteed $84 million contract with the Minnesota Vikings, the first of its kind in NFL history. That scared, overlooked fourth-round pick had just changed the business of football forever. But this wasn't the end of his story. It was just the beginning of his masterpiece. Vikings fans, desperate for their first Super Bowl, weren't just getting a quarterback. They were getting a man possessed by precision. In his first season, Kirk didn't just play, he rewrote the Vikings record book. 425 completions, a single-season franchise record. 70.1% completion percentage, the second highest mark in NFL history at that time. The spreadsheet guy was now breaking spreadsheets. But here's where the story takes another incredible turn. While critics were busy saying he couldn't win big games, Kirk was silently architecting one of the most dramatic playoff moments in Vikings history. January 5th, 2020, New Orleans. Overtime. The Superdome roaring. Kirk drops back, launches a perfect pass to Kyle Rudolph. Touchdown. The Vikings' first overtime playoff win in franchise history. The can't win big games narrative shattered. 6 seasons in Minnesota painted a picture of excellence that even his harshest critics couldn't ignore. 2 Pro Bowl selections, over 20,000 passing yards, and 153 touchdowns. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Kirk had evolved from a player trying to prove himself into a leader who was redefining what leadership looked like in the NFL. Remember that kid tracking throws in high school? He was now tracking defensive coverages with the same obsession. Every interception, every incompletion became a data point for improvement. This wasn't just quarterbacking, this was quarterbacking reimagined through the lens of relentless preparation. And just when everyone thought Kirk Cousins had reached his ceiling, 2024 brought a new chapter that would test everything he had built. The year is 2024. The Atlanta Falcons made a move that shocked the NFL. They didn't just sign Kirk Cousins, they bet $180 million that the 4th-round pick from 2012 was still ascending. Kirk swapped his familiar number 8 for 18. A small change that symbolized something bigger. But here's what makes this part of Kirk's story different from every other free agent signing. The Falcons weren't just getting a quarterback with 42,000 passing yards and 287 touchdowns. They were getting something far more valuable. They were getting the blueprint of how to turn doubts into dollars, how to transform preparation into performance. Kirk Cousins has now earned more money than 99% of first-round quarterbacks in NFL history. That kid who tracked throws in high school spreadsheets? He's now tracking career earnings in the hundreds of millions. The backup who wasn't supposed to start? He's now the face of one of the NFL's most ambitious rebuilding projects. The numbers tell one story. 98.2 career passer rating, better than many Hall of Famers. But the real story? It's in the journey. From 102nd pick to becoming one of just a handful of quarterbacks to throw for over 40,000 yards. From being criticized for being too methodical to being celebrated for his precision. Do you remember those 3 strategies I promised at the beginning? Here they are. First and foremost is turn preparation into your superpower. Second is use criticism as your fuel. And last is make consistency your trademark. But perhaps the most powerful lesson from Kirk Cousins' story isn't about football at all. It's about the power of patient persistence. In a world obsessed with overnight success, Kirk built his career like he built those spreadsheets. One sell at a time, one throw at a time, one doubt-crushing moment at a time. As we look back at this incredible journey, here's what makes Kirk Cousins' story more than just another NFL success tale. In a league that worships natural talent, he proved that methodical preparation could be just as powerful. In an era of flashy highlights, he showed that consistency could be just as valuable as creativity. Kirk Cousins redefined what's possible for an overlooked quarterback. He didn't just earn a roster spot. He earned a legacy. He didn't just win games, he won respect. That spreadsheet-obsessed kid from Holland, Michigan became the NFL's ultimate testament to the power of preparation. Perhaps the most powerful part of Kirk's story is still being written. In Atlanta, wearing number 18, he's not just playing for yards or touchdowns anymore. He's playing to show every overlooked athlete that your draft position doesn't define your destination. That being methodical isn't a weakness, it's a weapon. That sometimes the best way to prove doubters wrong isn't to shout, but to succeed. The next time someone tells you you're too calculated, too methodical, or not talented enough, remember Kirk Cousins. Remember the backup who became a star. Remember that sometimes the best stories aren't written in the first round. They're learned the hard way. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and join us for more untold stories of NFL greatness. And remember, in Kirk's own words, you like that. Kirk was one of the quarterbacks drafted in 2012, picked at 102 overall. 7 quarterbacks were selected before him. Ever wondered where those 7 are now? How their careers turned out? Were they all elite? Or did some go down as the biggest busts in NFL history? I'm diving into this fascinating topic in an upcoming video, so don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified as soon as it drops.